When it comes to the fiscal, you see it by way of the trade deficit that is persistent. You see the deficit in terms of the current account, the balance of payments, the fiscal.
Hi, wonderful people of Ghana. It's your Nigerian girl pleasure bringing you political news in our channel, Ghanatube. Here are the happenings that has actually been getting roots in Ghana, and yet we are actually always here to bring you all the trending the news your way, so you actually get glued. Please wait.
The Bank of Ghana Governor Dr. Johnson Isiama has revealed that Cocoa Board is expected to receive more than $4 billion inflows before the end of this year. This is part of a new pre-financing deal that will see global buyers of Ghana's cocoa advance about 60% of payment to Cocoa Board. Bank of Ghana Governor tells Joy Business these inflows should help in stabilizing the city.
The problem, there'll be a deficit, when it comes to the fiscal. You see it by way of the trade deficit that is persistent. You see the deficit in terms of the current account, the balance of payments, the fiscal. You see deficits there. Then you know there'll be a currency crisis in the country. Question I ask is, do we have such a situation now? No, we have surpluses in these. Economic growth is strong. You know the growth number for the first quarter, above 5%. Nominal GDP growth was above 6%. We are now waiting for the second quarter, GDP growth to also come in. Where is inflation? What's happening to inflation? It's on the mend. It's on the decline. So the macro fundamentally is stable. So there's no source of pressure fundamentally from that angle. Therefore, what you are seeing and what you are seeing in just the last 2 months or so is the cash flow problems that come in just because people are adjusting differently, right? Remittance flows, when it comes to, exporters bringing their flows back, that's what is happening. And as a regulator, we are working in a number of ways to regulate that.
Doc, as we try and wrap up this discussion, what assurance do you have for businesses out there? That person, that kind of person who is exposed to a little bit of FX transaction, look at what is happening in the market, CD crossing levels, some are panicking, some are rushing to withdraw their monies and all the rest. There is a market concern out there. Some are saying that we're looking up to Dr. Johnson Isiama to give us an assurance that I can work with, I can hold him by his word and go about my business normally.
There's every assurance, George. In the first place, our net international reserves hasn't run out. We have adequate reserves to cover, as a nation, our expenditure as far as the rest of the world is concerned. But as a central bank, we need to change a few things. I can tell you, for example, when it comes to the way imports, as some of our importers are conducting their affairs, the abuse of the import declaration system, for example, these are impacting on, the amount of reserves that we have out there. So it's our job, to fix this, to reform this. And that is exactly what we are doing currently. As for the external viability of the country, it is strong, it's there. What I can say, we met the Association of Exporters and Importers the other day. I explained the same thing to them, that this is just a short-term problem. We believe that by the time, and remember, we are just entering into the cocoa season. That's another factor. If you look at it historically, before the onset of the cocoa season, you always found this type of pressure in the FX market. So it's not strange. From what I'm told from the Cocoa Board, they are expecting over $4 billion in cocoa financing, based on what they do now, the pre-financing arrangement. So with all these prospects coming in, just about to come in, why panic? It's a short-term thing we are contending with. We are taking opportunity of the situation to fix the FX markets. That's what you are seeing through our notices, etc. As these inflows resume, remittance inflows resume, cocoa inflows begin to come in, trickle in. I'm sure any moment from now you begin to see those. We, like I said, we've just decided that mining flows that were coming to us should now go directly to the commercial banks. So we will see more liquidity in the interbank FX markets. And then as a central bank, we stand when there's persistent shortage, we go in there to support the markets. And so we should be able to take care of, the demands as we go along. But as usual, even as individuals, there are times when there's a bit of, so forth. It doesn't mean that there's a crisis.
The governor has spoken. Let's get to Zoom and speak to the manager of macroeconomic research at GCB Bank PLC on this development. Courage Boutique. Now, what do you make of this announcement by the Bank of Ghana, Courage?
Well, good afternoon and good afternoon to your listeners. Not a surprising announcement, so to say. We know, I think 2 years running now, because we are unsuccessful at the syndication we've done annually to purchase cocoa, we've resorted to some arrangements with the buyers and of course the local market to fund cocoa purchases. What that does is that previously you would have had about 70% or so of the amount needed to purchase cocoa coming from the offshore market, and by extension, when you export, the proceeds will first go to service those, and so the percentage of that truly we own in the local economy that we can lay claim of will be the 30% that comes in. We have an arrangement now where the local market provide about 40% NCD of the amount needed to purchase cocoa, which means that 40% of the proceeds from cocoa sale is localized, is coming into the local market, and you have also the LBCs and all those who purchase that along the chain providing about 60% upfront from to fund the purchases. What it does is that it takes away a component of that syndication cost that comes to Cocoa Board over time, helping them in their finances, and that whole entire flow can impact the local market almost immediately because those things come before the purchase begin, and that provides enough cushion on ammunition for the local market. I'm excited about the announcement that the flows from cocoa are being seeded to the commercial banking system to help boost liquidity, because that is the main issue. The monies do come, but if it all goes into reserve and Bank of Ghana need to intervene in the market to how that can lead to some intermittent liquidity pressures and all that. If it comes to the market, of course, now that Bank of Ghana has adequate reserve, it comes to the market, it boosts liquidity, so it ensures that we smoothing volatility and we ensure the market is liquid enough ahead of the Yuletide season. And so if Bank of Ghana had to come to the market at all, it will be in times where there is absolute need, where there are liquidity interventions that are absolutely needed to be made, and that limits the amount of times they come and solves that issue with the IMF's regular commentary around Bank of Ghana interventions in the market. Really. So it was a crisis then, but it's turned out to be a good arrangement that wins Cocoa Board of the market.
Right, I want to get from you as well. Would this do the trick in terms of the market assurance for the city's outlook?
The last time I spoke to you, I was certain that what we are seeing may appear like volatility, but is to be expected. It's seasonal in nature. We see this thing year after year around this period, and especially given the level of correction we've seen in the city, I expect, and I think it's reasonable to expect that there will be some actions on the markets to try to test the resolve, and that is where we are. And of course, given the Bank of Ghana stance now on documentation and the strictness in enforcing the rules around FS trade and all that, these things happening are to be expected. It is when the CD moves in back into regions like 14 there that will be concerned. But for me, anything in the region of lower to mid 12 to $1 is a fair value for the city, and these dynamics would have to happen until we find a fair value. So for me, I'm totally comfortable with the dynamics now, and I think the liquidity coming into the banking system will support that kind of discovering fair value.
Speaking about fair value, the Bank of Ghana rates has crossed 11 Ghana cedis mark. What do you make of that? Are you worried that this development could possibly spark speculation from where you sit?
It depends on how it's managed. I think, like Governor said, and I'm 100% aligned with him, the fundamental support stability and all the measures of macro fundamentals that you can deduce any meaning for exchange rate from the support stability. Reserves are showing that your current account position is showing that, your growth is showing that, inflation is receding and is showing that. And so there is fundamentally support for FX, and the fiscal position and stance is also supportive of that really. So there is no cause for concern. And to the extent it's market dynamics, if the market is testing the resolve and there is enough liquidity to match the demand, then the motivation to speculate will be quelled.
Great.
And that is what I expect to happen in a matter of time.
Finally, what do you make of the financing arrangement for Cocoa Board based on this remark by the governor?
Also, it's mimicking what Gold Board is doing as well, right? Gold Board effectively now purchases about 30, 35, maybe up to 40% of the local gold market. That increases the Ghanaian ownership of that. Yes, we own cocoa 100%. There are no foreign players in the production of cocoa. But when it comes to the owners of resource to purchase, it's largely foreign in the past and very little domestic participation. Now, because the domestic participation holds about 40% of that, which means 40% of that 4 billion will sit in the local market. We buy with CD, we get the dollar flowing in, and of course the 60% bit is also money that is coming up front and will not go back, right? Because what is going out is cocoa beans and all that, and so there is not that risk of repatriation and all that. So I think we are cracking that, and I'm comfortable. I would expect that over time the local market will increase its share in that whole arrangement, so that it provides financing opportunity for the banks over time to participate in that value chain.
Thank you very much, Karen, for your time here on the marketplace. I was speaking to the Director of Macroeconomic Research at GCB Bank. And now let's move on. The Bank of Ghana has announced the creation of a new digital credit area under its new non-bank financial service provision. A statement issued by the Bank of Ghana a while ago noted that this is part of measures to broaden access to financial system with a view of promoting financial inclusion. And that statement is what you see on the screen right here. And this initiative forms part of the ongoing effort to broaden access to financial system with a view of promoting financial inclusion. The bank emphasizes that this notice does not confer automatic authorization or license to provide digital credit services on all entities which currently provide services and operate under the first schedule of Act 774. The Bank of Ghana will in due course issue a directive to lay out the licensing requirement for the provision of digital credit services. All stakeholders are advised to take note. So this just came through a few minutes ago. Moving away from that, traders and industries have promised to fully comply with the enforcement of the Bank of Ghana's Forex measures. The central bank, in a notice earlier this week, reminded the public about their plan to strictly enforce regulations on importation of Forex as well as pricing in local currency. Let's hear from one of them. That's the president of the Ghana Union of Traders Association, Joseph Obin, who spoke on PM Express Business Edition.
When you come to the market and somebody give you $1 to buy a product, you don't have the need of the dollar, because when you are changing the money, you are transferring the money, you still have to change it into cedis. Before you send it to the bank, from the bank, you cannot send the dollar home. Even the foreign bureau operator will even take advantage of you. So people do not actually, but let me tell you, we have a sovereign currency. I don't understand. Most of us who have traveled across the globe do not see this in other countries.
I mean, you support this action firmly by the Bank of Ghana, enforcing the CD as the only legal tender for transactions.
Other foreign currencies, when they come to Ghana, have to be chasing our local currency, the CD, so that they can get the strength. But not the vice versa, where our sovereign currency chases other currencies from other countries. It does not make sense. And that's why we chase the currency and it fries. And then we all come back and cry. So we don't have to be chasing.
Looking to level up your life and business game? Welcome to the #1 podcast for business and self-development, Connected Minds Podcast. Join our host, Derek Abaite, as he dives deep into strategies, insights, and real-life stories that will help you make smarter choices for a happier, more successful life. Don't miss out. Stay connected with us. Tune in to the
In another development, employment growth in Ghana has been more driven by urban than rural. That's according to the quarterly labor statistics released by the Ghana Statistical Service. Here is Helen Nakai's IA report.
According to the Ghana Statistical Service, urban employment grew by 14.9% over the last 3 years compared to 11.8%. Here is government statistician Dr. Hassan Idrisu.
The growth in employment has been more urban driven. Urban employment grew by 14.9% over the last 3 years compared to 11.8% in rural areas. Let's also look at the labor force participation and absorption rates. And here we see that participation and absorption trends show about 60% of the working age population is employed on the average, pointing to untapped labor potential. Though more females have been employed than males, like I mentioned earlier, unemployment rate is higher among females. The gender difference in unemployment rates narrowed from a peak of 7.4 percentage points in 2023 quarter 1 to 3.9 percentage points in 2024 quarter 4, in part due to substantial reduction in unemployment rate among females.
The data also showed that Greater Accra National Capital had a higher unemployment rate compared to the national average. The rate of unemployment was pegged at 16.9%. In terms of employment by gender, females have the greater share, but the sex difference spiked from 632,000 in 2022 to 1.12 million in 2024. Helena Kai's report read to you.
Today on our show business segment, we dive into a not so much talked about area of the music industry, the sale of music catalogs. Some international mega deals to dispute over credits and royalties. Catalog purchase are reshaping how artists and producers monetize their work. Here in Ghana, a recent clash between dancehall star Shatta Wale and producer MOG Beats has thrust this issue into the spotlight. MOG alleges that Shatta Wale misappropriated production credits. Today, cultural journalist Kenneth Awachidako joins us to unpack this important side of the creative industry. Charlie Chema, it's good to see you.
Good to see you too.
Wonderful. Now, help us understand what is music catalog and how important is it in the creative sphere?
So when you talk about the sale of music catalog, it's essentially the transfer of publishing rights or master recordings belonging to an artist to another party. It could be an investor, it could be a record label, or anybody that's willing to invest into the craft of whoever is putting out this product. And so if someone decides to put money into what you're doing and take over the rights and publishing of that particular song or music for a certain period of time, that is what is called the sale of your music catalog. And it's becoming more and more pervasive, because as and when streaming is going forward, you've seen developments from the regular cassettes and records to streaming of content amongst all those other things. So it has become easier to track how much revenue or the value that a specific song will attract in a couple of years, and they measure that against inflation amongst other things, and then the buyer or the investor pays the artist and everybody who is related to that particular song, and then they take over the particular product for a specific period of time. So that essentially is the basics of music catalog and its sale.
Recently, we saw back and forth with Shatta Wale and MOG banter over what actually happened when Shatta Wale decided to release some of his songs to an international company. Why does this matter?
It matters because in doing that, there are some, legal remedies that have to be achieved before some transaction such as this goes through. Because if you look at the fact that a song is put out there, the artist is not the only person who is usually on the song. Usually there are producers, there are songwriters, there are other people who are credited for contributing to the success of that particular product. And so if there is a transaction like buying or selling of a catalog, all of these parties involved in the creation of the song have to be involved or clear their part of the deal before it goes through. What Emoji is alleging right now is the fact that Shatta Wale allegedly did not seek their consent and also took his name off of some of the records where he was the producer and replaced those credits with him, Shatta Wale's name. So that is where he had discrepancy, which means that if there are any payments that are going to the contributors of that particular song, he will be left out, and that is where the controversy is at this moment.
I see Emoji removed the album from the Apple Music and
yeah, so he has petitioned the Waka Music is the institution that procured the catalog that Shatta Wale has sold, and so he is saying that he has petitioned them, and based off of the evidence that he has provided, the preliminary investigation has led to them pulling down some of the records and albums from the streaming platform, so that when the issues are cleared, we will know if it will come back on or not.
Finally, apart from concentration on awards, what can be done to ensure there's proper music governance in Ghana?
I mean, protection of intellectual property is a major thing. It's a big issue when it comes to Ghana. We have had issues over and over again. For instance, we've seen people copy other people's music without the right, license and also the permission to do that, which have brought other, bedeviled the space. And so it's not just limited to Emoji and Shatta Wale, which means that there needs to be very legal frameworks that protects the intellectual property of some of these artists to ensure that anytime there are such transactions, everybody has an equal share of the pie.
Thank you very much, Kenneth, for always bringing the insight from the entertainment showbiz aspect of the conversation. We'll talk about business here on the marketplace. That's all for today. Thank you for watching. My name is Winston Taki. Don't forget, we'll be bringing you Beyond the Numbers at 5:30 p.m. today. Stay tuned.
Please do well to like, comment, and follow. Put on notification bell so you get all our news one by one. Thanks, my people.